Nice to see everyone on Game 7 of a playoff game.
Well, the good news is it's 1-1.
Oh,
Good.
Good.
That's good.
keep the beard.
My name is Patrick Mynahan. I am a resident of Monroeville. And I want to talk about some things that happened this past Thursday at Citizens Night. Councilman Kalari pointed out that when he advertised the zoning board vacancies, he only got 3 volunteers. Am I right?
Correct.
I would like to respectfully point out a few issues I have with this. First, at last month's council meeting, this council dissolved the zoning board and immediately reestablished it with 3 of the 5 former members. It was only later another resident came up to speak that he pointed out that this violated the Home Rule Charter, and advertising of the vacant positions is required under our charter. However, with 3 members already nominated and seconded by this council, it was clear that advertising vacancies was merely a formality, and the 3 members you guys wanted, were going to fill the so-called positions. I don't think anyone was going to waste their time volunteering for that, because you have to send a resume, I think, and I don't know if you're interviewed or not, phone call or something. I don't know. It's a waste of time. You guys went through the motions, but your positions were already clear. I would like to also point out that you stated, Mr. Kalari, that you spearheaded the effort to discontinue the pay for the zoning board. And I think this was a good idea. I really do. Saving money is good, obviously, for the town and the taxpayers. However, I don't believe that it was practical. I think it was all political. Had it been practical, perhaps you would have suggested terminating the pay for the entire board instead of just remove 2 members right before the peak building season. If it had been practical, perhaps council might have taken a look at how much it paid the zoning board solicitor when there was no meeting scheduled and tried to restructure that contract. Instead, you guys used the excuse that you were trying to save money after you passed the largest tax increase in 22 years. You removed those 2 members, John Yakum and Ray Pasquarella, political reasons only. John, obviously, because he's outspoken, and Ray because he's the father of Stephen Pasquarella. I mean, that's how it looks. There's no other, you can't come to any other conclusion, I'm sorry. I also believe that 3 members on the zoning board is reckless in a time when we're trying to draw in new businesses who need their services to build out. Regardless of Monroeville having only 3 members in the past, I allege this was long before the massive business growth of the municipality. I'm 42 years old. I can remember when there was no hospital, no Giant Eagle down there, the drive-ins, there was multiple drive-ins here. We didn't have the businesses that we do now. I fail to believe at least 1 of the 7 members of our council did not concur with this or agree with the residents who spoke out against lowering the board to 3 members. I also need to clarify something else. One of them is Councilman Harvey's statement during his report about gifts. You asked, hypothetically, if you were required to disclose if your wife gives you a Monroeville Council shirt. The answer is no. Gifts to politicians is clearly spelled out in Pennsylvania statutes. Title 65, Section 13A10B defines the term gift. But the Pennsylvania Public Official and Employee Act lists what you can and cannot do as an official. It's also called the Ethics Act. Section 1105B lists what is required on your statements of financial interest. Subsection B6, the name and address of the source and the amount of any gift or gifts valued in an aggregate of $250 or more and the circumstances of each gift. This paragraph shall not apply to a gift or gifts received from a spouse, parent, parent by marriage, sibling, child, grandchild, other family, or friend when the circumstances make it clear that the motivation for the action was personal.
But you thought I didn't know that.
No, I knew you did.
We all know that.
I know. The public probably doesn't. So I'm sure you know it. You're seasoned at this. A lot of people think you're new, but you're returning. You're not new. So anyway, to go on, Mrs. Harvey is free to give Mr. Harvey whatever she likes. However, I do think that Mr. Yakum's questions last week do have merit. I don't know what a badge costs, but This time next year, any gifts that you guys get, you're going to have to make on your financial statements, and we're going to have access to that.
Depending on who it's from.
Pardon me?
Depending on who it's from.
Depending on who it's from. If it's from
Correct.
Mrs. Harvey, you don't have to document anything.
That's right.
Okay. Lastly, and I'm going to turn this 180 degrees, I need to ask you a question, Mr. Little, about the library tax. Since the referendum was started before you returned, am I right?
Yes,
Okay. By Councilman
know.
Erb?
yes.
Okay.
That's what I was told by the library when I went to a very first meeting as liaison, because I knew nothing about it.
I actually don't mind a referendum. It gives me, as a taxpayer, a choice to
Well, I
not
like.
pay a tax.
Well, I like it as well for the public to make the decision.
Right.
So,
What I wanted to know, because I was confused by some of the statements that Mrs. Fennessy said last week. Did they talk to you at all since you came back?
No, they haven't talked to me directly. The conversations I had was with Christy Fusco, the director of the library.
Okay. I was
More
just,
so.
my questions are, they stated that they're no longer going to get money from the municipality should this pass. Am I understanding that right?
Is that a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There hasn't been any talks, any formal talks about if the referendum passes, because we're all talking in a vacuum about what happens if the referendum passes. There's nothing been discussed formally, there's nothing been put into writing. It's all been talk. If the referendum passes, then obviously they get a 1 mil of money dedicated to the library.
Right.
Now, they have said publicly
Yes.
that they would not need any of the $985,000, I believe, is budgeted to them right now from the general fund. They also have said publicly that they would not need any capital money, which totals about another $300,000-$400,000. And we put into our bond issues, we have 4 bond issues right now, and you never know about bond issues into the future.
Right.
That they would not seek, now they've said this publicly, not to me personally, they would not seek any kind of capital money. And again, there's also been talk, although I don't know if Mrs. Fennessy said it here last week, about that they would not need their parking lot plowed and salted and landscaping done.
Yeah.
But again,
Which
it's
is-
just all been talk.
Which is not much. It's,
Well, when the referendum passes, if it passes, not when, but if it passes, then maybe there'll be some more formal engagements about that.
okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to close with this. I have fond memories of a lot of Saturday afternoons spent at the library with my sisters and parents when I was a kid. And I truly appreciate the work that the dedicated women on the library board do for a long-standing Monroeville institution. However, I cannot agree with them on their needs for a 1 mil increase, and I'm concerned about how it will be spent, and lack of oversight bothers me tremendously. Unfortunately, I don't believe that they would ever give any of the money back, because in politics, it just doesn't happen. They'll find a way to spend the money. So I think it's important that all my fellow residents remember to vote next Tuesday, because this referendum will affect us all. Lots of people choose not to vote in the primary, and I think the library board counted on that. But we need to vote, and this is one of the few times we can choose to pay or not to pay a tax increase. Thank you all.
thank you.
I have a comment.